Have you ever noticed that some people seem to deal with adversity and challenging situations better than others? Would you like to learn what those people might know? If you've ever wondered if there could be an art to the process of letting go, then you are really going to appreciate this conversation. Welcome to C60 Health Connections, where we meet with leading experts who can help you elevate performance in all aspects of your life. Today's show is our fourth conversation in our mini-series dedicated to helping you process the complex emotions and feelings associated with grief. The lovely Susan Fox is with us today. Susan brings 20 years of experience as a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. She is also a fellow of the American Board of Oriental Reproductive Medicine and an expert in functional medicine. She is going to help us understand more about our internal organs that are specifically associated with grief and which organs are associated with the process of letting go. If you would like to learn about how to let go with more ease and grace, then today's show is dedicated to you. My name is Jessica McNaughton, and I am the CEO at ShopC60.com and C60 Purple Power. I'm a business executive with years of experience in corporate America, and for more than 20 years, I've been exploring various modalities in health, wellness, and spirituality. Now, before we get started, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Any products or topics discussed today are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, mitigate, or prevent any disease. Susan, it is so great to see you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, Jessica, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to the conversation. I think it's an important one, particularly these days.
Yeah, I do too. We've all gone through so much over the last 2.5+ years, and we're continuing to get inundated with new information and challenging situations that really just challenge us in all aspects of our lives. And so I think today's conversation is one where I'm really looking forward to doing this deep dive with you internally to talk about our organs and what's actually happening. And I'm really interested in learning more about this, about the process of letting go through the lens of Chinese medicine specifically. So you're the perfect person to guide us here. So can you just tell us a little bit about your background and how the events in your life led you to do this type of work and to be an expert and really be so passionate about helping support people through Chinese medicine?
Well, thank you. Yes. So I've been a practitioner of Chinese medicine for the past 20 years as well. Prior to that, I also had been in the corporate world. I would say my exposure to Chinese medicine started when I was about 18 years old. And I was struggling from health issues that the Western medical doctors were kind of in a conundrum about how to help me heal. And so I was being bounced back and forth between gastroenterology and psychiatry. And the GI doc said, your gut's fine. Even though it wasn't, the psychiatrist said, there's nothing wrong with you, even though I was suffering. And it wasn't until I had the opportunity, and this was way back when Chinese medicine and acupuncture was relatively new to the United States. A hippie friend asked me, would you want to try acupuncture? And I said, I'll try anything because I was suffering. And it was in that experience that I firsthand learned the connection between my emotions and my physical well-being or lack thereof. In this case, my grief, which we're covering today, over the loss of my father, and my inability to process it was really manifesting with this energy that was overactive on my gut. And so I was having in what is now known as autoimmune, sort of early autoimmune signs and symptoms. But way back when, I think we were in the late 70s, that I don't even know if that was even a word. So having experienced it literally, viscerally on the table with an acupuncture session, I became rather intrigued by and enamored with the medicine. And what I love about Chinese medicine is that it's 5,000 plus years old, and it is born of observing nature and observing that we are nature. And so much of what we see in nature occurs within ourselves. And our frontal lobe has kind of unlearned some of that, especially insofar as health and medicine is concerned. So it's really nice to be revisiting that, and to also be seeing where and how sort of the Western medical world or the healthcare world is, quote unquote, discovering what we have been speaking about and treating for centuries.
Thank you for sharing that. I lost my father several years ago, so I definitely can relate with what a transformational and profound experience it is to lose a parent and a loved one, and how sometimes those experiences really not only shake up, but they do transform our lives truly. And so I have the perspective today that while some of these situations are so painful and so challenging to get through, I also believe that there's a lot of really powerful medicine that's available to us through the process of grief and transformation, and we can become something new out of it. And so really my hope and my intent with today's conversation is really to help empower people and give them new tools and information that they might not have had before about what could be going on internally to help support that process of transformation, because we're all going through some aspect of transformation right now. And if we lean into the discomfort, I think that there's a lot of gold here available for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually think that there are many silver linings to what we've all been through for the last couple of years. One of which, overarching, is that we have had to slow down and feel and take the time to recognize that that we have emotions, and those emotions affect us. And prior to our period of slowdown, we were on the gerbil wheel of busyness that would just disallow the opportunity to take a look and, as you say, lean into what's happening in there.
That's so true. Well, when I reached out to you originally about this conversation, and you shared with me, I did not know this. This was new news, and you shared with me that the lungs are one of the organs that are associated with grief. I was just kind of taken aback by the fact that while we're all grieving, we're also really struggling to understand how to support our lung health.
Exactly.
And you mentioned digestion earlier, and you also shared with me that the large intestines are another organ that are associated with grief. So can you just take us on a little journey? Can you give us a little bit of coaching about grief and these particular organs, and what do these organs go through when we're experiencing these complex emotions?
Certainly. Well, yes. So in Chinese medicine, and you'll probably hear me preface with the words "in Chinese medicine" a lot during our conversation, the lungs and the large intestine are what we call paired organ systems. They work together to promote our overall health, our immunity, and they are the organs that are most affected by grief. So when our lungs and our large intestine are strong, we can deal with grief. We know how to access it, to process it, and to, as you say, transform through it, because there is always an act of letting go. We experience it from the moment we're born until our last breath through our breath, right? If we were to say, oh gosh, I might not get another breath, because we know we're not going to get another breath one day, and we decide not to let go, to exhale, well, we are going to hasten that process of that moment of not being able to get another breath in, because we must exhale in order to inhale. So that's at the level of the lungs, right? And so if our lungs are gunked up with either toxins or mucus, or just a habit of either sitting or breathing shallowly, not into our lower lobes, then they are going to be a little bit more vulnerable to when we are inevitably going to get, I was going to say hit with, but we're going to experience a moment of grief, and it does it, whether it's a little loss or a big loss, they are going to sort of affect us similarly. The large intestine, of course, is another organ system of assimilation and elimination. We take in the nutrients, and if we don't take them in well, and if our large intestine isn't healthy, with our microbiome being healthy, then we are going to be ill. If we don't eliminate well, then we are here again going to be all the more ill, when in fact, we get this emotional impact of grief. It will inevitably cause an inflammatory response in our gut, because of the elevated cortisol associated with the grief, that will then make our guts a little bit leaky. That single cell layer of our intestines, which will let our nutrients pass into our blood, will get permeable, and particles that should be too big to pass into the bloodstream will get into the bloodstream, and our immune system, doing the job it's supposed to do, will go look for tissues to attack, to find that pathogen and get rid of it for our ability to live healthfully. Ironically, when that happens, this becomes typically the precursor to an autoimmune situation, because a protein from our undigested food getting into our bloodstream will look like a protein in our own tissue, and our body will tag that tissue saying, aha, I found it. It's the thyroid. It's the tissue surrounding the joints for rheumatoid arthritis. It's the tissue of the colon itself for ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease. So it's just an aberration of what is trying to be a healthy response. I don't know if that just went too deep into the weeds, but
no, I think it's beautiful. Thank you very much for explaining that. So what are some of the things that we could be doing to support our lung health, maybe preventatively, or when you're in the process of, wow, I've gone through this experience and I am grieving, and I'm really feeling, these deeply powerful emotions that can sometimes be described as overwhelming.
Right. Well, I will say it all starts with the breath, right? That is our perfect intervention always. And it is how we can best protect, strengthen, and heal our lungs if we're sort of in a deficient state, and we get exposed to grief, or frankly, a pathogen, allergy, or something like that. So I often will invite patients to practice what I have heard called the 4-4-4-4, or box breathing, where we inhale to the count of 4, we hold that breath into the count of 4, we exhale to the count of 4, and we hold the breath out to the count of 4. That's a pretty easy cadence to take in, no matter where you are in your health. Of course, you can take it further, deeper, longer, but just that practice will reset the diaphragm in our breathing, which is part of our hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, to say, there's no saber-toothed tiger here. We don't have to rush with cortisol and adrenaline to run away. If we can take these deep breaths, we're in a good state of parasympathetic, which is our rest, digest, detoxify, eliminate, and reproduce aspect of our autonomic nervous system. If we find ourselves, in a deficient state, and we are face squaring off with grief, there are even herbs and supplements. And I don't know how much you want me to share about that.
Feel free. Yes, please.
Yeah, I would say that in Chinese medicine, we have assigned the phrase jade windscreen to the herb Astragalus. It's a common, herb now in the Western supplement pharmaceutical, if you will. And Astragalus really works to strengthen our immune system. And so it is going to literally provide stronger integrity to our blood vessels, to our immunoglobulins, so that we are better prepared to square off with or against any sort of invasion. So astragalus, you can buy it, probably at the health food store, or you can buy it in bulk through, if you've got nearby, a Chinese medicine store. It actually looks in its whole form like a tongue depressor. It's just this very sort of oblong looking, or a popsicle stick. Maybe that's a better way, a visual image. And you can put a few strips of that into your bone broth stock, into your soups or stews, into the rice that you might be making, and it will have this medicinal effect as food, as medicine. So that's probably the top-notch one for lung health. We would also say, our lungs want to be moist, right? We don't, without being too gummed up. So foods like asparagus, which is about to come into season here in the northern hemisphere, is a wonderful food that we use. We say it is a yin tonic, and yin is the aspect of our body that is sort of the moistening, cooling, calming, grounding part of our nature. Whereas, just for the sake of contrast, yang, sometimes people refer to it as yang, is the active, hot, creative, expressive aspect of our nervous system. And we really want them in balance. So that asparagus that is coming, soon to a table near you, enjoy it, knowing that it's not just tasty; it's actually a tonic for you.
Oh, that's lovely. I did not know that. Thank you. Would you mind? I know you just explained to us how to do the box breathing, but just so our audience can participate here, I'll do it. But can you please just walk us through the box breathing? And can you also give us some guidance on how long should we do it? Is one round enough? Should we do it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes? Should we do this for 30 minutes? If we're panicking and we're for the folks that struggle with anxiety or a panic attack or just extreme overwhelm, can you give us a little bit more insight into like how long we should do the box breathing?
Certainly. And this might sound like a cop-out, but really we do it until we feel the change, right? So for some people that may be a breath. If we're in the thick of it, more often than not, it's going to take several breaths, perhaps 2 minutes. But what we're trying to do is to discipline our breathing. So that is our natural breathing. So I would say maybe kind of prophylactically, preventatively, doing it, kind of set your alarm every couple of hours with a beautiful chime or harp sound.
Okay.
Please don't make it a honking or an alarm kind of sound, because that's antithetical to what we're trying to accomplish. As a reminder, am I breathing? How am I breathing? Am I hunched over in my posture at the computer or whatever? Because of course, when you just think about that or try to lean forward in a hunched position, you can feel that your lungs are collapsed and crunched down and impaired. So, sitting with your spine upright, and this might sound very familiar to many people because it is not exclusive to Chinese medicine. It's yoga. It's a lot of the ancient practices of taking that nice deep inhale in to the count of 4, 3, 2, 1, and then hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then exhale through the nose or mouth. 4, 3, 2, 1. And then to really empty those lungs, another 4, 3, 2, 1. And for many people, it's the exhale that is the hardest. We know because we're accustomed to just popping that air out, but we really aren't exercising those lower lobes. And that's where, here again, when we speak about the last couple of years, it's really important to strengthen those lower lobes because they want to push up the deoxygenated air so that we can get new inhalation of oxygenation, so that we're not struggling with pneumonia or bronchitis or any of these other conditions that are really consequent to lower lobe lung health that is compromised.
For those of us who have dealt with the pandemic flu over the last 2.5 years, is the box breathing supportive to kind of building back your lung strength, especially if you're dealing with something like long haulers, or you've got, some lingering kind of congestion that you just can't seem to get over the hump with?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Okay.
And what I love about Chinese medicine is that it's common sense, right?
Right.
It's almost a no-brainer that, of course, taking this time to breathe and to slow down can only be beneficial to our overall health. It can only lower cortisol. It can only get us deeper in tune with our feelings, because it may be, for instance, that we feel teary, but behind that tears, maybe grief isn't the real pure emotion. Maybe tears are kind of our way of sort of venting, if you will, the expression of maybe we're angry. And what we really need to do is just go out and have a good shout it out, or a dance party in the living room to shake it off, because that depression, if you will, that tendency toward overriding a pure angry outburst. And and I certainly I'm not promoting road rage or anything like that,
Right.
but we've damned the word anger, or the expression of anger, because polite people don't get angry. Well, that's just not true, because polite people are humans, and humans get angry. And anger is a need to sort of just blow off some excess steam. And we
Mm-hmm.
see it with toddlers all the time, right? They're our best teachers, where
Yeah.
they'll, sort of wail or thrash and then get up and go play. And, we should be able to do that as well, of course, with our adult reasoning in the proper place and time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So what about the large intestines? What types of foods or tonics or herbs or even exercises or practices should we be considering to support our large intestines as we're dealing with grief?
For sure. Well, I would say just overall circulation, right? We have become, a Zoom nation, and as a result, we are not moving. So I would say, just please, make time in your schedule, block 5 minutes, even do 5 jumping jacks in front of your computer if that's all you have time to do. Just get, or run in place, or knees to elbows, or whatever it's going to take, whatever feels joyous to you. If you have more time, sure, go out and take a lovely walk in nature. I think it was in the 90s in Japan, when people, mostly men, were having heart attacks at their desk. They became aware of the need to get out in nature, and they called it forest breathing or forest washing, forest bathing. That's the word. And of course, we don't need to go to the forest, but the idea being that nature, the trees, will take in our carbon dioxide and will provide us the oxygen we need to kind of rekindle our own cells with life force. We call it qi in Chinese medicine. So first, movement, circulation. Give the intestines need blood flow just as much as any other part of our body. And when we're sitting for too long, or if we're literally tied in knots, we actually have language that describes, some of these things. If we have a gut instinct that something is not right, just take a beat and pay attention to that. And what do I need? Certainly, we need water. That's another key element we're mostly made of. And if we are chronically dehydrated, that's a stress on our body that especially affects the large intestine, because the large intestine's function is to help with the elimination of waste. And so what it does is to take this product, the process that is a very liquid waste product, and then it sends the water that we need for our body back through its linings into our blood, into our system, so that we remain hydrated. If we aren't hydrated enough, and that colon, that large intestine, is deficient, therefore, it's not going to function as well. And then we're going to end up with things like either constipation, or if it becomes inflamed, alternating constipation and diarrhea with more of a skinny stool. Sometimes it becomes mucousy. If that progresses, it becomes bloody. And so, let's not go there. If all we need to do is to hydrate. Uh, Foods, I would say when we think of the large intestine, we really want to think of the microbiome, right? We hear a lot about that these days, and how the microbiome is in fact our master conductor for all the processes in our body. The bugs, the healthy bugs that live in our gut, are responsible for our hormonal communications, our neurotransmitter communications, and so much more. So we want to feed those healthy bugs with what they need. And what they mostly need are what are called butyrates from the fibers of our vegetables. So the widest variety of vegetables, ideally as close to the seasons as where you live, ideally organic, so that we're engaging our body as part of nature. Those butyrates are prebiotics. They feed the healthy flora of our body, so that the healthy flora is stronger than the bad bugs, the unhealthy flora, and can mitigate some of what the bad bugs might otherwise want to be having us crave if they are more proliferative, such as sugar, alcohol, other forms of sugar or alcohol, like chocolates and so forth. Not that any of those things are bad, but when you're having a craving, know that it's not your willpower, it's not your brain, it's your gut sending the message to your brain. So you want to say, well, then why is my gut behaving this way? Well, probably because the bad bugs are saying more for us. We're bellying up to the bar first. And whereas when we are eating healthfully, we notice that those cravings abate. Well, they abate not because we've got great willpower. They abate because the good bugs are in charge and are able to do their job better. And I might have digressed, so forgive me. I think that you had other aspect to your question that I might not have answered.
No, I think that's great. I really appreciate how just elegantly you laid all that out for us. I'm curious because one of the other things that we're dealing with right now across the country and around the world are supply chain issues. So if people are, struggling to get access to really fresh organic vegetables, are there a few, maybe like 2 or 3, that you would say, if you can get your hands on these are vegetables that you would recommend that are really supportive to to folks struggling with constipation or really interested in supporting their gut health. So I'm curious, like, what are your powerhouse veggies that you would recommend to keep the movement flowing?
I would say if somebody is having difficulty finding, locally grown, organic farm, farm to table kind of fresh vegetables, then organic frozen vegetables are a good choice, because they are organic, fresh, and freshly frozen. So they actually may be, in some cases, healthier than an organic produce that's been sitting on, the shelf for a week or two.
Okay.
Not that it could actually last that long,
right?
But if it does, if it happens to be the kind of potato or whatever that could do that, then you're probably better off getting the flash frozen, in the frozen aisle section. I would say that I can't say that I have favorites insofar as the large intestine is concerned, but I will say that if you are dealing with colon issues, if you're having diarrhea, constipation, bloating, gas, so forth, that's when I would say let's maybe give a little supplementation. Let's maybe front load with a good probiotic. And I personally have a favorite in that I lean toward the ones that are more spore based, because they have an opportunity to grow themselves once they hit the alkaline portion of our body and our colon. So I won't name names, just spore based is, look for spore based, and you'll find, ones that you like. And they're going to, and I would also say, take them at bedtime so that they have all night to proliferate. They're not competing with digesting breakfast, lunch, dinner, but they're just sitting in there, while you're sleeping, growing and repopulating, so that you're by morning you've got a little bit more than you would have had if you're trying to have it compete with digestion.
Oh, that's such a great recommendation. Very few people talk about that. So thank you for
You're
sharing
welcome. Sure.
that with us, to take your probiotics at night. I really like that. Okay, so we're going to cover some of these common emotions that are associated with grief. After grief, another common feeling that a lot of us are going through right now is fear. So can you talk to us about the organs that are associated with fear and what might be going on with our organs when we're feeling fear?
Right. So here again, in Chinese medicine, fear is associated with the organs, the paired organs of kidney and urinary bladder. And when you think about it, you've probably heard stories, whether you know someone or not, of someone having a sudden fright, and the next day or month, all of a sudden they either have hair loss or their hair turns suddenly gray. Fear accelerates the aging process.
Wow.
Right. Here again, fear is not it's not bad. It is protective. It's just that when we get into these loops of, it's not even quite fear at that point. It's more, I don't even really have the word of, like, are we okay now? Are we okay now? Is everything okay now? Is the other shoe going to drop? We're fearful of something that is really not present. And so we are not present. So that's, if you notice that these things are happening, then, here again, just take a minute and ask yourself, is this real? Is it present? Is there anything I can do about it now? Or is there something I can do about it in the future, where I will make that sort of mental note to attend to it when I can finish my box breathing, perhaps, or taking a walk, or doing these other shake it off kind of things.
I love that idea about just kind of checking in with yourself, coming back to the present moment, grounding yourself, centering yourself, instead of like going on, letting your mind wander about all the potential things that haven't happened yet, about what could happen, about just checking in. I think that that's really profound and important advice. Thank you.
And in the Chinese medicine acupuncture meridian theory, if you will, the very first point in our body is at the base of our feet. So you mentioned grounding, and that's what made me think of it. If you look at the bottom of your foot, where the arch meets the ball, that point, get barefoot. If you can, step on as close to the earth. I mean, obviously, if it's freezing cold outside, don't be doing that. But if you can, or when you can, even in your home, like, take off, the high-heeled shoes. They don't help our feet. Like, just really get grounded. And that getting grounded is calming, and that calming will help the fear dissipate. Because here again, I say the word dissipate because all of this is just energy. It just wants to move, dissipate, and morph into its next expression. All of these emotions, all of these organ systems generate the energy for the next. So if they're not clogged up or suppressed or repressed or stagnant, that energy of those organ systems, lung and large intestine, will feed the next. So when you almost think about, if we really let go, we can generate the next idea or creativity, or at least the foundation for it. We can generate the space within which the next idea or creativity can sort of bubble up from the recesses of wherever. In our bodies, when we think about sort of the organs that are most associated with the kidney system, it's not just our filtering devices of our kidneys, it's not just our bladder, it's also our hormonal pathways, because those are also what dictate our aging process, right? So down to the gonads. If we're stressing our bodies too much, and we're in this constant state of, is everything okay now? Is everything okay now? We're trying to run ahead of the the next project, we're aging ourselves too quickly. And that can have an adverse effect on our fertility, which happens to be my area of focus and specialty. So we will see, women who are in their 30s, who've run a very stressful, career, and they're extremely accomplished, and they've got more letters after their names with their degrees. And then they come in and they go, oh, I wanted to have a baby. And now my ovarian reserve is diminished. And, we don't know. Some of that could be genetic, but we do know that, that certainly that lifestyle is not conducive to a fertile earth, a fertile body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that fear can really contribute to taking away from our ability to create an environment internally for those of us that are female, where we could support pregnancy.
Right.
Basically.
Right. If we're running for our lives,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have room to make room for another life.
Yeah.
Our nature is brilliant that way. It's going to help us survive at any cost.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. So the next feeling that a lot of us are feeling during these times, and you mentioned it earlier, and you mentioned that, we in our culture today, we've been kind of conditioned to suppress this, and that's anger. So can you talk to us a little bit about what organs are associated with the emotion of anger?
Yes, I will. But if I may, I just want to roll back a little bit to give an imagery in nature for lung, large intestine, for kidney, urinary bladder, because you will see how they really help generate each other. So lung, large intestine is air, right?
Okay.
Of course, we breathe in air. Kidney, urinary bladder is water. Obviously, we're processing the waters, but it's not just our water. It's the earth's water. It's the depths of the ocean. It is the hidden mysteries that are in the deep, dark, mysterious part of life, including the life that lives within us. Now to liver and gallbladder, which are the paired organ systems wherein anger can be either healthfully expressed or can be repressed, suppressed, that makes us depressed. That image in nature is the tree, the sprout that wants to grow from the acorn to the oak, that wants to grow from, again, under that sort of encrusted snowy earth to become a crocus, hearkening the beginning of spring. That's liver energy, and that exists within us. It is our impetus to say, I'm going to do that. I'm going to learn this. This is where my creative outlet wants to be, whether it be business or arts or poetry or running or dancing or whatever it is. That when you think about I'm going to do that, that's your liver energy. So how can that be bad, right? It's wonderful. It's what makes us uniquely us. It is when we don't get to express that creative flow that our innate nature kind of feels like it's been, somebody's put the lid on us, or something has put the lid on us. And yet, kind of think about if you've got a high performance car and that car is in park and you're pressing the accelerator but not going anywhere, guess what? You're going to burn out. You're going to run out of fuel. It's going to get hot and bothered. And that's what happens to us as well. And that's that anger outburst. It wants to just blow it off. And here again, in our modern culture, we don't allow that. It's not polite. And so that person will repress, suppress, become depressed, and then feel as though he or she needs to cover, if you will, with a medication. Now, I am not opposed to medication. There, we certainly have needs. Our brain can be in need of support, just as any other part of our body. But I think our tendency toward prescription as the first line of recourse is dangerous for our whole health. So, try what you can do to express yourself. Do you love to sing? And sometimes people say, I don't know what I love to do. I'll say, what did you love to do when you were 10? before the world started telling you what you should be thinking, or 7, you name them. Obviously, when we want to be of memory making age, but we innately were born with certain gifts and skills that we wanted to share and express, and that can usually be a key to how can you help best blow off some of this pent up energy that just then behind that is the delightful new idea of, oh my gosh, I forgot I love to do this, I want to go do that now.
That's awesome. I think that's such a good reminder. So many of us, um, our true nature just kind of gets worked on out of us through our work environments or life. And I think it's really important to stay in touch with your inner nature, your true child self. And I love that you're kind of encouraging and reminding us to, use those creative outlets appropriately to channel some of this anger and this pent up frustration. And a lot of us have it because we've been stuck at home for a while and we haven't had the normal, human interactions that we've been accustomed to, and we really have been suppressed, repressed, and some of us have gotten depressed.
So be soft with yourself as well around that, right? I mean, the liver as an organ loves sour is the flavor. Each of these organs also have flavors that they love. The liver loves sour because the sour nature, we say, softens the liver. Whereas other organs in our body are kind of tubular, the liver is more almost like a sponge with all of these little a multitude of tubes within it, but and we want to soften that, because when it becomes hard, it can become congested, and then hormones can't flow, bile can't flow, toxins can't flow. So we would even say that glass of lemon water that we know that we should have because it's good for us. Lemon is sour. The liver loves sour. So we almost start our morning by going, okay, liver, we're going to not only help you physically and physiologically, but we're going to help my liver nature creatively. Back to the other organs that we covered that I forgot to mention, the flavors that they like. The kidney, when you think about it, we talked about the depths of the ocean, loves salt, salty. So natural salt, let's not, kind of douse ourselves with too much salt. And then the lung and large intestine, like pungent, is like that sort of that feeling like, oh, it almost makes you the back of your mouth water a little bit.
So would it be safe to assume that, like, for an appropriate liver tonic would be, like you said, the glass of lemon water first thing in the morning? That would support our liver. And then if we were to sprinkle a little bit of sea salt into our water, that would be supportive to our kidney and organ system. And then could you give me an example of something that might be supportive that falls in that pungent category? Because I'm also, when you say pungent, I'm thinking of something sour, but I don't know if I'm thinking of the right food group.
Yeah. So let me think. So acrid, pungent, like pepper, cayenne pepper. So it's so funny when we say this, it's like we almost can think of that cocktail, the lemon, cayenne, maple syrup, which the spleen likes. We'll be talking about that, and with a pinch of sea salt. Yum! It all tastes so good.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. I forgot to ask you this, because we covered this with the other ones, but for anger, you earlier you mentioned, hey, like a good release could be having a dance party in your living room, and you also mentioned, like there's some different outlets that you could do. What do you think about sprinting? Like if you are able to get out in the woods and you could just do some sprinting, is that a really productive way just to blow it off?
Absolutely, provided that the sprint is playful. I mean, you want to really think of it as playful as opposed to more of the muscling through, because the muscling through is contracture. You really want it to be more expansive. So if a sprint through the wood is, or up the hill or whatever is playful, then yeah, that will blow off some really great steam.
Okay, great. The next emotion that I want to talk about is mania. And I think that we can see a lot of this expressed in the media with celebrity events. with social media. So, what can you tell us about mania, and what do we need to do if we're feeling manic or something? What do we need to do to kind of work through this emotion, and what organs or systems are associated with this kind of negative feeling?
Sure. Well, I would say that the mania, we call it overjoy, is the term that's used in the ancient text, but it's not always feeling joyous, right? It feels like almost like a disassociation. The person who wants to dance on the bar top, with the chandelier, on their head, kind of thing. Like everything's fine.
Okay, like they're just kind of going crazy a little bit.
They're out of body. They're having
Okay.
out of body, kind of experience with that. It's
Yeah.
they've lost their mind, right? There's a thing that we would say in terms of our current sort of vernacular to describe that. So that is associated with our heart. Our heart, is our most, it's our love organ. It's our spirit. We refer to it as Shen in Chinese medicine. And we really want to protect the heart. The heart is kind of like the empress or the emperor. You wouldn't imagine that an emperor or an empress would be able to just be accessible, always to the masses. It's protected, and so that's really more about the meditative arts. That's where you want to get your rest. For instance, a good night's sleep helps the heart. Meditation helps the heart. Guided imagery, beautiful music. And so, whatever is beautiful to you, the classical, that which kind of calms the spirit. Because when the spirit, the Shen, is disturbed, it wants to fly. I think of it like the bird in the cage, even. It wants to open that cage door and it's out of here. So we want to just keep it calm in there. And we have this physical wrapping around our heart. And and in Chinese medicine, we have an organ system that wraps around the heart called the pericardium. It has the same name. It's the heart protector. So we really want to make sure that we are taking care of our heart to the level of the pericardium, so that deep inside the heart knows all is well. So I would say these practices should be daily. They're preventive. They're necessary. Because if we get to it's really hard to undo feeling manic. It's really hard to find your center feeling manic. It's a lot easier to shore up our spirit so that when grief or when an environmental or something other assaults our senses, we don't feel like that's it. That's the last straw. We're out of here. The dam is cracked. Our mind is gone, all of those other things. So I would say just, use your life as though your life depended upon it.
It's a really good reminder. When you're talking about that, it just kind of reminds me of like, the opportunity that we have when you're saying this should be a daily practice to kind of build in a little kind of a beautiful nighttime routine. So candles and a bath and some classical music and maybe a cup of tea, and just kind of setting the stage so you can ease into your restful sleep and really get that quality sleep, not only that you deserve, but that your body desperately needs to rest and recover, and to be able to deal with the continual waves of whatever comes next.
Right. And upon waking, yes, for sure, because certainly during our sleep hours, that could be a whole whole hours topic, the importance of the detoxification that occurs, including our brain, so that we're not losing our mind. That's like the lymphatic system that is kind of the last in the chain of detoxification. So getting ample quality sleep is imperative for detoxing our liver and detoxing our colon and detoxing our brain, so that we are ready upon waking to greet that next day. And so I really do want to say, so it's the ritual, the hygiene for sleep. We also want a little ritual upon waking, just a one thought gratitude practice that could simply be, wow, I got to wake up today. I get to try it again. Even if yesterday was a what show, Today could be, it's a brand new start. And if we start with that, like, oh, thank you for this day, I got to do it again, then we've set the tone for the day as well, as opposed to, oh my God, the first thing upon thinking is, oh, I've got, 11 Zoom meetings back to back. I barely have time to shower. And, oh, then I'm just going to grab coffee. If we begin with that kind of thought process, without it, we don't have to, you're very welcome to open a gratitude journal and write it all out. And there is much to be gleaned from that. But, these little teeny practices that really take either a second to 5 minutes, that is our daily retreat center, if you will. We don't have to go off to a retreat center, as lovely as that is and sounds. We've not been able to do that for a couple of years. And so we need to know how to do it in our everyday, so that maybe our vacation can be, just sort of an additional respite. It is not the escape hatch that we've kind of turned it into.
Oh, such great practical advice. And I know we've got just a couple minutes left. I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you very much. Can you talk to us about the final emotion, which a lot of us are dealing with, which is worry?
Yes. So in Chinese medicine, the spleen organ system is what we say is the one that is associated with worry. Or let me rephrase that. Worry is what appears when the spleen organ system is out of balance or deficient. So the spleen organ system is not what we know the spleen to be in Western medicine. It's not the repository of old red blood cells. It is our enteric nervous system. It's the entirety of our digestive system, our ability to take in nutrients, assimilate them, process them, and eliminate waste efficiently. When our spleen digestive system is not properly supported with food, water, movement, restoration through sleep, then it's going to become deficient, and that's where we get that sort of leaky gut kind of thing. The spleen is about the integrity of our body, including our blood vessels. So a deficient spleen could also be easily to bruise, flooding menstruation, and in the emotional state, leaky thoughts. That's the worry, right? It's the worry is like that dog with the bone of, I just can't get off this thought. It's really, I just, even though it's no longer present, I just really want to gnaw on this again and again and again. That obviously doesn't serve us. And so if that happens, it's almost like a sign, like a flash, like, oh, maybe what I need to do is instead of gnawing on that thought bone, realize, oh, my thoughts are leaky. How can I restore them? And because my thoughts are part of my brain and my brain is part of my body, how do I restore myself? And that is with, here again, healthy nutrition. I would say the spleen likes natural sweet. And so in terms of foods, it's the foods that are naturally sweet, like sweet potatoes, the squashes, carrots. Like if you think of the orange and yellow family of foods and produce, or foods, and I'm trying to think I would say in terms of the flesh proteins that we might eat, chicken is more on the yellow tone. When you think of chicken fat, for instance, it's more on the yellow tone than beef, which is more on the red tone. That's more blood supporting, whereas chicken would be more spleen supporting. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
What I can tell the listeners is that, this is one place where I could say, if you're thinking, well, what can I eat for my spleen or my lungs or my liver or my kidneys? That's where I would say a Google search is probably helpful, because this foods for spleen, Chinese medicine, foods for lung, Chinese medicine, foods for kidney, Chinese medicine. These are ancient ways of eating. You'll be able to find a good resource.
And, I love that, like, throughout this, you've shared with us, these are ancient techniques, but they're all grounded in common sense. And it's really stuff that, like, your grandma would tell you if you were sick, like, do this, get your sleep, get your fresh air, get your exercise and movement, stay hydrated, eat your vegetables. I mean, these are all And your soup, yeah. These are all really practical, basic, habits. But in today's modern society and culture, we've just kind of like lost touch with some of this stuff because we're so used to instant gratification and quick convenience, and we're all in a hurry. And so I do think, like you said at the beginning, the light, the silver lining in all of this is that we've had more of an opportunity to kind of slow down and to feel our feelings. And while some of these feelings are very challenging, there are things that we can do every single day in our daily habits and routines that will really support calming our nervous system and really support our body, keep our elimination and our movement flowing. And I just, all of this stuff is so great. So thank you so much for
Oh, my
everything you
pleasure.
shared with us today, Susan. This is like, it's practical wisdom, which we really need.
Very much.
Do you have any final kind of parting words of wisdom for our audience, in terms of best practices to navigate through the journey of grief?
Mm. I would say best practices for navigating through the journey of grief is to allow that grief is not a bad thing. We grieve because we love. We grieve that which we love. If we don't really have an affinity towards something and it goes away, we don't give it a passing thought. So flip that side of the coin to that, oh, we had this love. We had this opportunity to express love and relationship. So, all of these negative emotions were not seen as such in the ancient times. They were just seen as resolution for, for the flip side. We grieve because we love. We fear because we want to protect. We want to live. It's our will to live. We have anger because we want to create. We feel manic because we also want to love. Love is the key, right? And we feel worried because we really want to be intact. We want to be in right relationship with being a human being in a physical body on this earth plane at this time.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate your time and energy, and thank you for all of the wonderful work that you are doing on the planet. We need more people like you, Susan. Thank you very
Back
much.
at you. and back at all the listeners as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You as well.